I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered.
King Charles expected the document to be sealed quietly, without resistance, and without a family confrontation. Instead, Prince William entered the private audience room, placed the unsigned approval file directly in front of his father, and demanded that the entire Privy Council examine it. The proposal concerned Camilla, but its consequences reached far beyond her. In one controlled sentence, the future king challenged not merely a title, but the monarch's right to reshape the crown behind closed doors. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles had authorized the proposal granting Camilla the lifetime-style Queen Mother Emerita. The title, created to preserve her lasting rank and public influence after his reign, carried more weight than a private gesture of devotion. William understood that royal precedence, the official order determining who stands, sits, and appears before whom, could shape Catherine's future position as queen. That was why he did not ask for a revision. He demanded suspension. The prince pushed the file toward the king and insisted that the Privy Council review it before any seal, proclamation, or palace announcement made the decision official. The Privy Council, senior advisors who approve certain acts of the monarch, would drag the proposal out of secrecy and into constitutional scrutiny. Charles read his son's written objection once. Then again, he removed his glasses, set them beside the pages, and said nothing. Camilla stood near the fireplace, watching both men measure every word. Only she, Charles, two constitutional advisors, and a senior private secretary had known the proposal had moved beyond discussion. Now William was exposing how far it had progressed. When he warned that the title could reduce Catherine's standing during his future reign, the queen consort's expression hardened. She realized he was not seeking reassurance. He was blocking her elevation. William then produced a second memorandum, a documented internal note outlining the title's reach. It promised Camilla access to royal residences, staff, ceremonial privileges, and a guaranteed position at major state occasions after Charles was gone. The king's shock deepened because the prince had obtained proof that the arrangement would survive into a reign that was not yet his father's to control. Charles finally ordered the room cleared. William moved toward the door, but one detail stopped him. His father did not tear up the proposal or withdraw it. The monarch closed the file, kept it beside his hand, and quietly summoned Camilla back for a private conversation. What began as a dispute over constitutional procedure was about to expose something far more personal, the future each of them believed the crown had promised. For Charles, the proposed title was an act of protection. For Camilla, it was recognition after decades of judgment. For William, it was a boundary that could not be crossed. The same document carried three entirely different meanings, and each meaning was powerful enough to divide a family. As separate conversations unfolded across the palace, affection became entangled with authority, old wounds returned, and one uncomfortable truth emerged. None of them was fighting only about protocol. Camilla sat alone with the draft resting unopened across her lap. She had not needed to read it again. Every line had already settled inside her. Queen Mother Emerita was meant to protect her standing after Charles's reign, allowing her to retain dignity, public purpose, and a clear place within the royal family. To her, the title was not a grab for power. It was a shield against the fear of becoming invisible the moment William inherited the throne. Charles entered quietly and immediately saw the hurt she was trying to control. The king had designed the proposal because he feared she would one day be treated as an inconvenient widow, surrounded by memories but stripped of influence. Camilla looked at him and asked the question neither of them had wanted to hear aloud. Did William truly believe she had spent all these years waiting to steal Catherine's place? Charles tried to soften the blow. He said the prince objected to the process, not to her personally. Camilla did not accept the protection hidden inside those words. She told him the process had only become unacceptable when her name appeared on the page. The queen consort understood that royal precedence, the formal order deciding who stands above whom at ceremonies and public events, could shape the future in ways no apology could undo. William carried that same fear back to Adelaide Cottage. He told Catherine exactly what he had done, including his demand for council approval and his refusal to let the title pass quietly. She stared at him, shocked by how far the confrontation had already gone. Then she placed her hand over his, knowing this decision could permanently damage his relationship with Charles. Catherine did not praise him. She asked the question he had been avoiding. Would he still oppose the title if it carried no future precedence, no authority over her, and no control inside his reign? William hesitated. That pause told her everything. Procedure was only part of the battle. Beneath it sat years of mistrust, old resentment, and a belief that Camilla's influence had already reached farther than Charles was willing to admit. Before the evening ended, the king received a handwritten note from his son. It named the single incident that had convinced William the title could never remain a private family arrangement. That note carried them all back to the moment when one small ceremonial decision became the point of no return. The confrontation had not begun with the council file. It began 6 weeks earlier, during a closed rehearsal for a Commonwealth Remembrance service at St. George's Chapel. No cameras were present, no crowds were waiting, and the family believed the arrangements were routine. Then William entered the nave and saw Catherine's chair being moved. On the seat beside Camilla rested a briefing card bearing 3 words no one had authorized publicly: Queen Mother Emerita. From that moment, silence was no longer possible. William stopped before anyone could explain. Palace staff had been rehearsing entrances, seating, and ceremonial precedents for a major Commonwealth service involving senior royals, diplomats, and representatives from across the realms. Ceremonial precedents meant the official order deciding where each royal stood, entered, and sat. That order carried real weight because even one changed chair could signal who held influence and who was expected to step back. The prince looked toward Catherine's assigned place and saw it had been moved one position farther from Charles. Beside the king sat a newly marked seat, prepared for Camilla, under the proposed future title. William lifted the briefing card and read the full line: Queen Mother Emerita Permanent Precedence Position. He turned to the equerry and asked who had authorized it. The equerry hesitated before answering. He explained that the instruction had come through the Queen's private office after approval from Charles. The private office was the small group of senior staff handling a royal's official duties, correspondence, and arrangements. That answer changed the atmosphere instantly. The seating plan was no longer an innocent rehearsal detail. It was proof that the title was already being treated as real. Catherine entered moments later and immediately sensed the tension. William folded the card before she could read it, but his silence told her enough. She asked what had happened. He told her only that the arrangements had changed without consultation, yet the future queen could see the anger beneath his restraint. Camilla arrived before the matter could be contained. She told William the plan was merely a rehearsal and could still be adjusted. The queen consort tried to reduce the moment to preparation, but he refused. He told her rehearsals existed to establish what everyone would later be expected to accept. The dispute darkened days later when William obtained a confidential palace strategy through a documented internal memorandum. It described the new title as already operationally accepted, meaning staff had begun applying it in practice despite no council review and no public authorization. He kept the folded card. Weeks later, William would place it beside Charles's proposal, as evidence that the title was being implemented before anyone had been allowed to challenge it. Armed with the card, the memorandum, and a determination Charles had underestimated, William prepared to confront both the king and the woman the title was designed to protect. The doors of the king's private library closed at precisely 6 o'clock. No aides remained inside. Charles stood behind his desk. Camilla sat rigidly near the window, and William entered carrying the folded chapel card in his coat pocket. What followed was not a constitutional consultation. It was a family reckoning. Years of carefully controlled resentment surfaced in a room built for discretion, and the most dangerous words were delivered without shouting. Calm, precise, and impossible to retract. Charles had summoned his son expecting one final private negotiation. He wanted the council demand withdrawn before senior courtiers learned that the heir had challenged him. The council demand meant William's formal request for advisors to examine the title before it could become official. Once that process began, the disagreement would no longer belong only to the family. It would become a question of authority, succession, and the limits of the king's power. Camilla had refused to remain outside. She would not allow men to debate her future as though she were powerless, absent, or merely an object passed between two reigns. The queen consort watched William approach the desk, then saw him remove the folded card from St. George's Chapel and place it beside the title proposal. William asked Charles why palace staff had already treated Queen Mother Emerita as settled policy. The prince spoke quietly. but every word landed with force. He reminded his father that the designation had never received formal approval, yet seating plans, briefing notes, and future privileges were already being arranged around it. Charles struck the desk once with the flat of his hand. The king accused his son of turning an act of private protection into a public test of loyalty. He said he was trying to ensure Camilla would not be abandoned after his death. William answered that protection could not be built by placing obligations on a reign that had not yet begun. Camilla finally asked the question burning beneath the argument. Did he intend to reduce her to a guest when Charles was gone? William turned toward her and chose his words carefully. He said she would be respected as family, but he would not inherit a constitutional arrangement created without his consent. A constitutional arrangement meant a formal structure affecting royal duties, rank, and authority beyond one monarch's lifetime. Charles then admitted the truth. He had intended to announce the title at the Accession Council anniversary, the annual event marking the formal beginning of his reign. Once the decision became public, resistance would look cruel, divisive, and dangerous. William did not withdraw his objection. Instead, he revealed that the Lord President's office had already received his written request for formal review. The conflict could no longer be contained. The moment William moved the dispute beyond the palace, affection lost its power to decide the outcome, and constitutional authority entered the room. The crown could create honors, alter styles, and shape royal tradition, but it could not always erase the consequences of doing so. By morning, the proposal had moved from the king's private desk into the machinery of government. Constitutional advisors studied every phrase. Council officers traced every privilege attached to the title. Charles had believed he was securing Camilla's dignity. William had forced everyone to ask a colder question. Was the monarch protecting his wife, or binding his successor to a decision he had never accepted? William waited alone in a palace antechamber while officials examined the file behind closed doors. He kept turning the folded chapel card between his fingers, aware that his stand could be described as an attack on his father's marriage. The review separated the symbolic title from its practical benefits. Those benefits included precedence, meaning formal rank at royal events, along with public funding, residences, staff, ceremonial seating, and guaranteed access to future state occasions. The prince knew why every detail mattered. A title could sound harmless while quietly creating permanent duties for the next sovereign. If the arrangement continued into his reign, he would inherit not only respect for Camilla, but legal, financial, and ceremonial promises he had never approved. That was the line he refused to cross. Charles refused to attend the first review session. The king told his private secretary that he would not sit before officials while they debated whether his wife deserved protection. He saw the examination as humiliating, yet advisors reached a difficult conclusion. The monarch could express a personal wish about Camilla's future style, but obligations extending into William's reign required wider constitutional and financial approval. Camilla soon discovered the full scale of what had been promised. Several privileges were written to continue regardless of the future sovereign's wishes. She confronted Charles privately and asked whether he had concealed those details because he already knew William would reject them. The queen consort had believed the title offered dignity. Now she feared it had been designed as a shield strong enough to survive even the prince's opposition. The tension deepened when a legal appendix surfaced inside the documented council file. It revealed that Queen Mother Emerita was not only meant to preserve Camilla's status, the title would also make her permanent chair of a proposed royal family council, a body intended to influence patronages, household appointments, and internal family decisions. That discovery changed everything. The Lord President suspended the entire title package and formally requested Charles's written justification. The Lord President was the senior official responsible for overseeing Privy Council business and presenting its decisions to the sovereign. Charles now faced a brutal choice: defend every hidden privilege in public constitutional language, or abandon parts of the promise he had made to Camilla. Charles could no longer protect the proposal with silence. Every promise made to Camilla now had to survive examination in William's presence. By the following afternoon, the title had not been approved, yet the damage was already spreading. Meetings were canceled. Seating plans were withdrawn. Staff members who had followed Charles's instructions suddenly feared they would be blamed for acting too soon. At the center of it all sat Camilla, watching an embossed folder being removed from her desk by a private secretary who could barely meet her eyes. The proposed honor had been meant to secure her place. Instead, It made that place feel more uncertain than ever. Camilla asked whether the folder was being revised. The secretary paused, then answered that it had been withdrawn pending council review. The presentation folder contained the proposed insignia design, the official symbol created to represent the new title during royal ceremonies. Its removal meant more than delay. It meant every preparation connected to Queen Mother Emerita had been frozen, including the announcement draft, ceremonial briefing, staff arrangements, and public explanation. The Queen Consort waited until the door closed. Then she removed the brooch Charles had given her that morning and placed it beside the empty space on the desk. The gesture carried no anger, only humiliation. She had once believed the title would protect her from becoming invisible. Now she felt exposed inside the very household that was supposed to defend her. Charles entered expecting pain but hoping for loyalty. The king found no immediate comfort. Camilla told him his secrecy had allowed William to present the proposal as an attempt to control the future, rather than an act of devotion. She reminded him that protection offered without consent could easily look like power taken in advance. He tried to explain that he had acted from fear, yet she answered that fear had placed her at the center of a battle she had never been prepared to fight publicly. The palace divided around them. Some senior officials believed Charles had every right to secure his wife's future. Others feared the proposal would weaken William before his reign even began, making the future king appear powerless over arrangements he would eventually be expected to honor. William then received news that changed the conflict again. Catherine had been removed from 2 scheduled engagements to prevent the press from questioning her about the dispute. The prince had challenged the title partly to protect her future standing, yet his stand was already forcing her into silence. Catherine did not complain. She told William that avoiding the public could not solve what the family had failed to settle privately. Then she made a decision that startled him. She asked to speak with Charles alone. When Camilla heard of the request, she could not tell whether Catherine intended to defend William or persuade him to compromise. The king did not know either. With the palace trapped between loyalty and resentment, the person least willing to fight for a title prepared to change the entire argument. Catherine did not arrive carrying documents, legal arguments, or demands. She entered the king's sitting room alone and asked that no advisor remain. Charles expected her to defend William. Instead, she spoke about Camilla. The future queen acknowledged the fear beneath the proposed title, the fear of widowhood, displacement, and becoming dependent upon the goodwill of a new reign. But she also told Charles that protection created through secrecy would never feel like honor. For the first time, his anger gave way to reflection. Catherine had requested the meeting because the dispute was trapped between 2 powerful instincts. William believed the future crown required clear constitutional limits. Charles believed his wife needed protection before he was no longer there to provide it. A constitutional limit meant a formal boundary preventing one reign from imposing permanent duties on the next. She understood both fears, and she knew neither man could resolve them while treating the other as an enemy. The princess told Charles she did not object to Camilla retaining dignity, security, a residence, and a meaningful public role after his reign. She would personally guarantee the queen consort a respected place within the future royal household, but she would not support a title designed to outrank consent, especially one carrying authority William had never approved. Charles studied her carefully and asked whether his son had sent her to soften the rejection. Catherine answered at once. The prince did not know she had come. She had risked tension within her own marriage, because silence was pushing the family toward a division no title could repair. The king looked toward a framed photograph of himself and Camilla. His voice softened as he admitted what had driven the proposal. He feared that once he was gone, his wife would become expendable, honored in public, ignored in private, and dependent upon the goodwill of a new sovereign who had never fully trusted her. Catherine did not dismiss that fear. She offered another path. Charles could withdraw Queen Mother Emerita, submit Camilla's future security arrangements to council approval, and create a role focused on charitable continuity rather than authority. Council approval meant formal examination by senior advisors, ensuring the arrangement carried consent instead of secrecy. The new role would preserve purpose without granting ceremonial precedence over the future queen. Charles remained silent for a long moment. Then he reached for the original proposal and asked his secretary to replace its final page. That evening, William received a private summons. The prince entered alone and found the title document waiting beside a fountain pen. Yet something had changed. The final page no longer carried the promise Charles had fought to defend. The next decision would reveal whether father and son still saw each other as rivals for control, or as custodians of the same crown. The palace hoped to announce the compromise before the dispute became public. It was already too late. By sunrise, the story dominated broadcasts, newspaper stands, and conversations outside Buckingham Palace. Yet the image that captured the country was not one of anger. It was a silent photograph of William leaving the palace alone, his face drawn, while Charles remained unseen behind the gates. The nation did not witness the private agreement taking shape. It witnessed a son carrying the visible weight of challenging his father. William's formal request for scrutiny appeared in leaked council correspondence, confirming that he had challenged privileges designed to continue into his reign. Council correspondence meant official written communication between senior advisors handling royal decisions. The documents did not expose every private argument, but they revealed enough to turn a family dispute into a national debate about power, consent, and the future of the monarchy. Broadcasters framed the conflict as a test of modern royal authority. Should Charles be allowed to protect Camilla through personal loyalty alone? Should constitutional transparency require every lasting privilege to face open examination? Or should William, as the future sovereign, have the final voice over arrangements he would one day inherit? The fictional London Herald captured the mood with one striking front page. William appeared beneath the headline, "The Line He Would Not Cross," while a smaller photograph showed Camilla arriving separately at Clarence House. The Queen Consort had spent years earning public acceptance, yet the image now reduced her future to a symbol of division. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace behind the barriers. One elderly woman slowly lowered her Union flag and said the prince had been right to protect the future crown. Another woman answered that Camilla had served the monarchy for years and deserved security when Charles was gone. Neither voice sounded triumphant. Both carried the sadness of people watching duty collide with family. Catherine faced that collision in public. At a children's charity engagement, a supporter called out that the royal family must remain united. She paused, offered a brief smile, and continued. Yet the future queen's tightened expression revealed the cost of becoming the calm center of a battle involving her husband, the king, and Camilla. The palace finally released a formal statement. It confirmed that Queen Mother Emerita would not proceed, and that a revised arrangement had received agreement from Charles, Camilla, William, Catherine, and the council. The constitutional conflict was settled. The family conflict was not. The public statement could explain the decision, but it could not repair the silence between father and son. The nation had received its answer about the title. Behind closed doors, Charles and William still needed an answer about each other. The final meeting contained no advisors, no council papers, and no carefully prepared speeches. Charles sat opposite William with the withdrawn title document between them. For several seconds, neither man reached for it. Then the king removed the proposal from its folder, tore through the page bearing the words, Queen Mother Emerita, and placed the pieces beside his pen. It was not an act of defeat. It was the moment he accepted that protecting Camilla could not require controlling the reign that belonged to his son. Charles formally withdrew the title and accepted the council-approved settlement. The agreement guaranteed Camilla financial security, suitable residences, personal protection, and the freedom to continue her charitable work. Council approval meant that senior advisors had examined and accepted the arrangement, ensuring it could continue without weakening William's future authority or placing the Queen Consort above Catherine in royal precedence. The king also accepted a new designation for his wife, royal patron for continuing service. The role allowed Camilla to support selected charities and public causes while carrying no authority over the future royal household. It would end automatically if she chose retirement, giving her dignity without creating permanent power. Charles signed the revised agreement in William's presence. He then turned the document across the table and placed the pen beside his son's hand. The prince signed below him. Their names now appeared on the same page, not on competing objections, and that small detail carried more meaning than either man was ready to admit. William finally told his father the truth. He had never wanted to humiliate Camilla or weaken the king. He had wanted to prevent love for one person from becoming an obligation silently imposed upon everyone who followed. Charles listened without interruption, then admitted that fear had driven him to secure too much. because he could not bear the thought of leaving his wife unprotected. Camilla later met Catherine privately. The queen consort acknowledged that the original proposal had carried more influence than she fully understood. Catherine assured her that respect, security, and family would remain, but she also made one boundary clear: the future monarchy could not depend upon secret guarantees. The council closed the review. Palace staff destroyed the unused insignia designs, restored the St. George's Chapel seating plan, and placed the folded briefing card in the royal archive as evidence of the crisis that forced reform. No one emerged victorious. Charles accepted a limit. William protected his reign without casting Camilla aside. She retained dignity without standing above the future queen. The monarchy remained bruised, but clearer. Its survival rested not on private promises, but on consent openly given. And when the palace doors finally closed that night, the title was gone, the family remained, and the crown had chosen duty over fear. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.